was enough to transform the landscape. In the Guatemalan capital, the fear of aftershocks drove thousands of people into the streets.
This is the biggest earthquake we've had since the one that occurred in 1976. This gives you an idea of what we're facing.
How many more lives will be claimed as a result of the earthquake is uncertain, but there's a chance this could become one of Guatemala's worst natural disasters in years.
It is the second storm moving in on an already battered East Coast.
It was just 9 days ago when Superstorm Sandy cost the eastern seaboard dozens of lives and billions in damages. And tonight, fresh stress and pain as a snowy nor'easter rips across New England down to Maryland and Delaware, blowing sleet and snow into Sandy's open wound.
Winds gusted up to 100 kilometers an hour, and up to 20 centimeters of snow fell in some parts. Around 750,000 people are now without power or water, living in freezing conditions.
Even as we were cleaning up the damage from yesterday, Sydney has been belted by another brief but ferocious spring storm.
The violent Phil whipped through after lunch, lasting just long enough to drench our royal visitors.
Well, Charles and Camilla escaped a tornado warning as they left Hobart, only to be caught up in Sydney's unpredictable spring weather.
Outside, something extraordinary was going on too. A huge electrical storm right over the Prince's Path.
It was like the heavens opened up just on cue.
Parts of Sydney are being lashed by severe storms right now, packing strong winds, tearing down trees and leaving one man trapped in his car by live power lines.
The Bureau recorded 107-kilometre-an-hour winds as well as hail and heavy rain. 18 millimetres fell in just 15 minutes at Penrith. At Campbelltown, the wind picked up debris, launching it through the air. It also hit Bankstown, Liverpool and Ingleburn, dumping large hailstones.
In Venice at the moment, it's difficult to tell the difference between streets and canals. The Italian city is languishing under 1.5 meters of floodwater after a weekend of heavy rain. Experts say there have only been 6 floods of this depth since 1872.
Venetians are used to high tides, but they have rarely seen anything like this. On Sunday morning, they woke up to a city submerged by 1.5 meters of water, one of the highest tides on record.
An earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 7.0 struck Myanmar. That's according to the U.S. Geological Survey.
The quake of magnitude 6.8 hit early today, more than 100 kilometers northwest of Mandalay, with more than a dozen people dead and 40 injured. 2 magnitude 5 aftershocks quickly followed. The initial tremor was felt as far away as the Thai capital Bangkok. It's said to be the biggest earthquake in the region for 20 years.
Late last night, this suburban community outside of Indianapolis was rocked from their beds when a blast obliterated 2 homes and ignited several others. Nearly 200 people were forced to quickly flee into the streets. An explosion so intense, at least 2 people are now dead and at least 8 others injured.
The blast could be felt for miles. Firefighters rushing to the scene. Witnesses say you could hear the screams in the night, families huddled outside.
But people say they could hear and feel it close to 3 miles away.
What used to be 5 homes less than 24 hours ago are nothing more than rubble. At least 80 homes severely affected by the blast. Authorities are working with federal authorities here in Indianapolis to try and figure out exactly what happened and what caused the massive devastation.
The air raid sirens going off were really the topic of the day here in Jerusalem. And I can tell you, a lot of people that I've been speaking to here on the ground were absolutely terrified by what happened. Keep in mind that there's never been a rocket fired on Jerusalem since 1970.
We've heard and felt the thuds of Israeli strikes continuing on the Gaza Strip.
And And turning to developments overnight in the Middle East, violence erupted for the third day. Nearly 100 Israeli rockets slammed into Gaza.
Anyone who says there's not a dramatic change in weather patterns, I think is denying reality.
Israel's bombardment of Gaza continues, with plumes of smoke rising and explosions echoing across the city.
In Rome, riot police fired tear gas and charged. There were similar scenes repeated elsewhere in Italy too.
4.5 magnitude earthquake has jolted northwest China's Ningxia autonomous.
Today we learned some facts about how this Earth is changing and how fast. Polar ice sheets in Greenland are melting at 5 times the pace of just a few years ago. New research concludes that Antarctica is melting.
Sea level rise is happening 60% faster than the United Nations predicted in 2007.
Could not even capture all of it. They say this amounted to a tsunami on the surface of the sun.
Protests against the Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi are spreading beyond Cairo.
Bondi dyed red. 4 kilometres of Sydney's coastline transformed by an algal bloom.
Large areas of Wales and England remain on flood alert after several days of almost non-stop heavy rains caused devastation in many parts of both countries. The death toll from the storms has risen to 4, and around 1,400 homes have been evacuated.
A destructive storm that belted the city this afternoon is still bringing heavy rain and winds up to 125 kilometres an hour. Thousands of homes are without power.
The winds here on St George's Terrace were incredibly strong, gusts of more than 100 kilometres an hour. At one point, the city centre was brought to a standstill.
Something called an atmospheric rift is now hitting the west coast. It's like opening up a fire hose 375 miles wide. Now the storm's taking a look at them. There are 3 back-to-back-to-back aimed directly at that area from about